So there has been a lot of Mushoku Tensei information that's came out in the last 24 or so hours, and I kind of want to cover it because there's a lot to talk about, and a lot of people are really discussing the matter. There's a lot of people that are upset about it, some are happy about it, and so let's dive headfirst right into it. So right here, we have, a famous leaker that I've covered a few of their posts in the past, and they turn out to be very true, talks about how there's going to be Mushoku Tensei news very soon, and then clarifies that it's not about this upcoming episode, aka this episode. This is early preview shot to the upcoming episode. It's not about this episode, it's about something else in the future. And from what I can gather from what they said between comments, they said it's not a delay, it's something else, better or whatever. So, it's very vague. It could be an OVA, it could be a movie, it could be basically saying that there's going to be a season 3. We don't really know. It's very vague. But, this is some information. I'll cover more of that in a second. Then we have Ice, which is, as I've covered his content before, he's very famous in the ReZero community. He also is very, very consistent with what he tells when it comes to leaks, etc. And he basically gave us a full synopsis of what's going to be happening in the next episode of Mushoku Tensei, aka this episode that we got early previews for like a day ago. And so, if you don't want to read this is spoilers, by the way, if you don't want to get spoiled for the next episode, but this is a brief layout of what's going to be for the next episode. And just to get the general gist of it, it's going to be covering the end of Volume 7. And now, what does this necessarily mean, okay? Let's just talk about that. So, basically, all the content that has been going on in Mushoku Tensei, since the anime began, with the Sarah stuff and all that, and Rudy, it's been basically Volume 7 content. And so, we gotta factor this in, okay? So, Episode 0 was not necessarily Volume 7, it's a separate entity that, was just further in the story and all that, but they wanted to put that first as Episode 0. So we can look at Episode 1 as truly starting Volume 7. And so if we factor in, Episode 1, Episode 2, and then this upcoming episode, Episode 3, it's going to conclude an entire volume of content. Now, in the past, I've seen many light novel adaptations, etc., that have covered a light novel volume in 3 episodes. I've seen it often. It's a very consistent thing. You can go back to many anime or light novel to anime adaptations, and you can find that this is a common theme that happens a lot. Now, the main thing is the pacing okay? For instance, can it turn out okay because of just how much content is being covered within that short amount of time? That's always a question that kind of, pops up with this ordeal. And so, when we see the content that, the episode's going to be covering, it goes into more the question of, or I guess this kind of gives us a little bit more of an answer to what's been happening, at least with the last episode of MT. The pacing or the direction. It seems to me like, the director and everyone that's kind of on board making all these decisions for Season 2 has kind of came to the conclusion they need to get through Volume 7 as quick as possible. That's at the very least what I can gather, because if this is exactly the truth, and, Ice is telling the truth about the synopsis, and I have no business to, not believing him. He's really accurate with pretty much everything he's always said. So, if this, turns out to actually be true this upcoming weekend, this does conclude Volume 7, and it does let us know that they wanted to get through it to get to the real meat of the season, what the real plot of the season's actually going to be about. Don't get me wrong, I talked about this in my review. I do think that Volume 7 is very important. I do think that there is some content in there that definitely plays a heavy role throughout the story of MT. I'm not saying it isn't. I really like the volume. But in the grand scheme of things, looking at the entire scope of MT, Volume 7 isn't as important. Yes, there is important elements. I'm not disregarding that. But it is not as important as the follow-up volume. So if there is any point to, or any volume that they need to kind of get through quickly, I think Volume 7 makes the most sense. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. Especially with probably where they want to end Core 1 at. If I think about just how they want to end Core 1, it makes a lot of sense why they would get through Volume 7 as quick as possible. Now, the question is how they do it. Because just because it's going to be fast-paced and they're trying to make it through the content as quick as possible, doesn't mean that it's going to be terrible. it could really still get the same point across. It really does come down to the directing and just how it is presented from, just the people that animated it throughout, the episode. So I do think that there is still a very good chance it's going to be a solid episode, but there's definitely a lot of people that are upset with this information that, episode 3 is going to conclude volume 7, and it's not going to be basically 5 episodes long, which I never thought it was going to be the case to begin with, because it just didn't make sense to me. I mean, for instance, when you think about just the teaser trailers to the key visuals and stuff of Mushoku Tensei Season 2, it's not really about Volume 7 content. That's truth. So it's just like, thinking about everything, we'll have to see. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I really don't. I wanted to talk about this because I have been seeing a lot of people talk about it in the last, 24 or so hours. Now, getting back into this, we need to talk about whatever this news is. Once again, this is very vague, and this is obviously not affiliated with the upcoming episode, but it does make you wonder what's happening here. And obviously, we could go through many different ways to think about what this announcement is. It could be maybe like an OVA episode, it could be a movie, it could be an announcement that, they're gonna, try to push the second half of, Season 2 closer, maybe further delay it. Who really knows? The point of the matter is apparently it's more information on the series. Maybe they're saying they're gonna bring back the original director. I don't know. Once again, it could be anything. So it's very vague at this point, but it is something to keep an eye on. And as we get more information on this, I will cover it and I will let you all know with a video. But yeah, that's the Mushoku Tensei news today. I just kind of want to talk about that because I saw a lot of people, talking about this throughout my feed today and even messaging me on YouTube saying, hey, you're going to talk about this? So here it is. So, anyways, you all have a fantastic day or night wherever you live. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.